Hello and welcome everybody to the Australian Small Business Podcast, powered by Happy HR, Australia's #1 HR provider for small businesses. I'm your host, Julian Gaylor, with Chris Smith, and we're here today to talk about some topics around all these crazy corona pandemic events that are happening and how it's affecting your small business. Chris, good morning. How are you?
G'day, Julian. How are you today, my friend?
Look, not too bad in the grand scheme of things, but there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, it's a crazy time for Australian small business, and they're really struggling. Happy HR has had 1,000-fold increase per day with emails and calls. So we're really, as a team, really powering through this and making sure clients get best practice advice. And it's really important that they make the right decisions and no knee-jerk reactions at this point in time.
Yeah, obviously we just need to turn on the news and look at the continuous lockdowns and everything that's going on. And there's so many questions and fears that small business owners have because we've had a lot of years of good times for business. The economy's been great, and a lot of business owners probably haven't been around when we had the GFC happen in 2008, and we're really going into some challenging times right now.
Absolutely. I certainly was around and was in business at that time with another business, and a lot of companies at that time didn't make the tough decisions quick enough. And this time, I think people are being a little bit more realistic, especially with lockdowns and shutdowns and so forth. So businesses need to get the very best advice from professionals to ensure that they're getting their business through this. At the end of the day, they need to look after their business, and they need to look after their families at the same token. They need to make sure they stay solvent and so forth through this time. So it's certainly going to be a lot of tough decisions for many businesses out there.
And absolutely, and I hear you say it a lot, where when it comes to HR and running a business, you're not in the business of being nice, you're in the business of being fair, and that's something that I know that businesses need to hear at the moment, because a lot of times they're trying to look after their employees and do the best by them, but by doing that, they're actually hurting the business or reducing the chance of sustainability, which in the end is no good for anyone if the business needs to close down. Are you experiencing that a lot at the moment?
Yeah, look, I had a conversation with a client last night. He's in the trades-based game, and he's got to a point where he's running out of work really fast. And this particular gentleman has a moral compass greater than most that I know, to be quite frank. And he's got a lot of staff that have worked for him for a long period of time. And he's going to be in a situation where he has to make these tough calls. The advice I gave him is, we've got to do everything we can to keep people in a job, and some may be going from 5 days to 3 and so forth. There's some advice we can provide around that. But he also needs to look at, okay, I am now 55 years old. I'm 10 years away from retirement age. I need to have a business in order to potentially sell in the future, which is part of my retirement. So he he's not a selfish gentleman at all. He's actually an incredible individual. But he's now realising that, he may need to make some people redundant or stand them down and so forth, which is going to cause his employees great pain and anxiety. But he needs to get through so he's got a future himself. So it's not about being selfish, it's just about being practical.
Yeah.
And he was really struggling with that. So he was really leaning on myself as that advice to help him make the best decisions for him and his family.
Yep.
So lots of people, bosses out there they love their staff and they appreciate their staff, and they're struggling with those situations they're going to find themselves in.
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of confusion right now around the difference between a redundancy, a stand down, and terminations. And I think that a lot of businesses are running into problems around this unknowingly, whether that's just simply that they don't understand the difference between the two, or what the entitlements of each of them are. So just quite concisely, Chris, can you explain what a redundancy is, what a stand down is, and of course what a termination is? What is a redundancy?
So redundancy is a mechanism for a business that has done its cash flow forecasts, and it's realised that it cannot sustain that employee in the business, or that role is being made redundant for business rationale reasons, aka the business is going in a new direction. So the mechanism of redundancy is to remove that person from the business with a payout or not, depending on the size of your business or the tenure of the employee, so the business can continue to trade in a solvent manner.
So essentially, if I'm hearing you correctly, a redundancy is simply that specific role, not necessarily the person, but that specific role in the business is no longer necessary, required, or viable, and
Correct.
so we're just removing that from the business.
Correct. Yeah.
So that would be different to a termination, where it's more so you're removing the person from the business and someone else will replace them in that role?
Yeah, that's right. Termination is someone who has got KPIs with measurements of performance, they're not meeting those targets, or their behaviour is not in line with the company's code of conduct, an example. So you've gone through a effective performance improvement process leading to a disciplinary meeting, which then results in a termination. Then that person will be terminated, then either the business would then re-recruit for that role or re-recruit for another role. But essentially that person's performance has not been up to scratch and they're being lawfully terminated.
Right. So if you wanted to capture it in a concise sentence, a redundancy would arguably be the removal of a role in a business, whereas a termination is a removal of a person
That's
who will then be
correct.
replaced. Great. And so that's something I think a lot of business owners need to think about, because we don't want to see people make someone redundant
Yep.
and then all of a sudden hire someone straight back into that next role.
Correct.
Do you see that happen a lot?
Look, in good times, yeah, people try and get rid of people or want a performance manager or in a way constructively dismiss people, and they make them a role redundant and then rename the role and then hire someone in. That's actually illegal to do, and lots of people try and do that, and employers have been really caught out with that in the past, so be careful that you're not doing that. So yeah, if you're going to remove a person, it needs to be through a lawful termination process.
Of course. And now we'll touch on it in another episode, but a stand down is something completely different. Can you give me the condensed version of what a stand down is?
Absolutely. So this is really interesting. You should have a stand down provision in your contract, and a lot of people do not. So a lot of people who are, for example, in construction right now, that's not an industry that stood down. So you can't stand employees down.
So what is a stand down?
So a stand down means that you basically, you've got absolutely no work, and there's a range of clauses in your awards and also in the Fair Work Act 2009. But essentially, you've been mandated, in this case, hospitality. You can't open your business. You can't do takeaway. So in that case, because it's mandated by government, you can stand your employees down without pay, and then they would be entitled to take leave entitlements and other things by negotiation and so forth.
So a stand down isn't necessarily removing someone from the business?
No, it's not. It's standing them down for a period of time.
So it's almost like putting pause on their employment.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And during that time, though, they do accrue entitlements. So people do need to realise that even though they're stood down, they are accruing entitlements.
Okay, so you brought up an interesting point there about talking about industries that are shut down. And so hospitality is one that's really been hit. Obviously, gyms and fitness centres,
Yep.
and we spoke about it the other day, Qantas.
Yep.
I mean, they're legitimate businesses that the government has said you need to shut down, and so
Yep.
there is no, there's literally no work for them.
Yep.
But what about industries that aren't shut down? Sure, they may have reduced capacity. Are employees able to stand them down? Let's say it might be, retail or something else like that.
Yeah, there is mechanisms in, depending again on your contract and your award. So generally, in different industries, there is some provisions for stand down based on mandates. So some retail shops now with like hairdressers, beauticians, etc., their business model has been evaporated now because of these mandates by the government. So as this is quite a fluid situation that people are going through, it's best to get advice, can you stand down or not, depending on your situation. So at this particular point in time, I've been getting calls from a lot of contracting companies that work in the commercial construction space. They're not stand down. If you're standing people down, it's most likely a redundancy, not a stand down. So people need to be very careful at this point.
I was going to ask you, are there times where, or there situations at the moment that you're coming across where people are trying to stand down employees to save costs when it probably isn't the right spot for a stand down? Can you give me examples of that?
Yeah, again, that construction case is a really good one. I had a client call me yesterday. They've got 50% of their workforce is casual, 50% of their workforce is full-time and part-time employees. He's got to a point where he's literally going to be running out of work in about a month from now. So he's asked me, what do I do in a month from now? Now, I said, look, at that time, you should recall me because there may be different provisions mandated by government in regards to stand down. And in fact, there might be other provisions in the award. So it's quite fluid. But in that particular situation, if it was to happen right now, he'd be making those people redundant, not standing them down, based on the provisions in his employment contracts. In his case, he's not a Happy HR subscriber. He's someone that's a personal friend. He doesn't have a stand down provision in his contract. If he was using a Happy HR contract, he would have a stand down provision. And in that case, because it is in the contract, he could have stood them down.
Okay, great. It's important that people do get an understanding of the difference between obviously a redundancy, a stand down, and termination.
Correct.
Because we're seeing a lot of business owners who are making, as you said earlier, those knee-jerk reactions that, I just need to make quick decisions, save money here and there. But we're seeing it's potentially costing them a lot more because, A, they may not be making the right decision. They don't understand the entitlements the employees have. But if they're doing something which isn't lawful, like that can turn into a fair work claim. And we know that right now, employees who are very conscious about keeping their wage and income, if they are to lose hours, if they are to lose their job completely, they are going to be looking at their entitlements. So right now, businesses can't afford to be making mistakes and turn this tough time into a really dire time for the business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, people at the moment, I really implore people before they make decisions on any termination, stand down, redundancy, get the right advice. The last thing you can afford right now is a fair work claim. And I'm sure the Commission would not look lightly on anyone doing the wrong thing at this particular point in time, because the employee is in they're in an even more vulnerable position right now. So you are 100% right. People who are making the wrong decisions based on their stress because of financial reasons, that's when they make the bad calls. But the bad calls will cost them more and dearly in the long run. And that's not a good thing for their business cash flow right now.
100%. Now, look, we will bring this one in for a landing. Today was just more so talking about the difference between a redundancy, a stand down, and termination. So, Chris, let's just sum this up. Now, we'll remind everyone listening that everybody's situation is going to be different. So this advice is completely general in nature. But we are here to help, and we'll give you some information on that at the end of this cast. But I just want you to finish these sentences. Let's make it very clear to make it very simple for our listeners in regards to which each of these is. So finish the sentence for me, Chris. A redundancy is
a mechanism to remove someone from your business because of financial reasons, not because of their performance.
Okay. A termination is
someone who's not performing and needs to be removed because of their performance is not in line with the company's measurements of performance for that role, or the behaviour is not in line with the company's code of conduct, as an example.
Okay. And a stand down is
a provision that a business can stand employees down depending on the work that's available. So basically it's a pause on that employment. They do get entitlements, and then hopefully they can join the business again in the future.
Wonderful. So what I'm hearing is that, let's say, a redundancy is the removal of an unnecessary position, therefore the person in the role.
Correct.
A termination is the removal of an individual from a position that will be replaced with someone else.
Correct.
And a stand down is essentially putting someone's employment on pause. So they're not removed from the business, but it is just paused on their current employment.
Correct.
Great. Well, hopefully that does give everyone a little bit more clarity and helps them to make some wise decisions in these testing times. Now, naturally, Chris, Happy HR is here to help businesses, and there's going to be a lot of fear and apprehension out there. How can they contact you or the team?
Absolutely. So we pride ourselves on being a service to the Australian small business community. We are absolutely here, especially right now. They can simply email to us a detailed email to help@happyhr.com. That will come directly to us. Our team of bachelor qualified consultants will triage that inquiry and make sure that you get that best practice advice. Right now, it's not about sales. It's truly about education of clients, making sure, or just people out there in general, to make sure that they are going to make the right decisions. Happy HR, really is and has got Australia's #1 virtual HR team. They're all bachelor qualified. They're incredible individuals. So if you do have any questions or anxieties, please don't hesitate to call. For more information on Happy HR, just simply go to happyhr.com. There's lots of information. There's FAQs. Our blog page has got huge response from our stand down blogs, our COVID-19 blogs. A massive amount of hits, and I've got people that has really helped people. We've had some tremendous emails and feedback from the general small business community. So thank you for your feedback. We'll continue to put stuff up as this situation changes.
Not a problem at all. That's fantastic. Now, the one thing I did want to mention that's completely free for anyone who's running a small business at the moment is the HR risk assessment. Now, this is something which is pretty phenomenal of how to look at it. It's something where a small business owner can take a very simple 5-minute questionnaire, and they can essentially literally be delivered a full PDF report based on their scores that tells them where their HR health is, and I guess the steps that they need to do to remove the risks in their business. What sort of feedback you get? How is that helping people at the moment, Chris?
This has been an initiative by Happy HR to help people take a HR risk assessment to really, for them, find out how are they actually going and where are they with their HR and what necessary steps should I do based on laws and other things. Because at the end of the day, HR is very complicated. We believe in 2020 that your relationship with your HR professional is as important as your accounting professional. So we've put together literally a 5-minute multiple choice questionnaire risk assessment that you can go online and fill out. Then it delivers you an absolutely, as you said, Julian, a phenomenal PDF that goes through your awards compliance, policy compliance, contract compliance, general HR knowledge around details around how your performance managed. So you can actually say where you are, but also what steps you should take in order to be best practice with your HR. So pretty much you don't have to worry about HR again. A fantastic document. We've had incredible feedback from clients based on this document. It's completely free. It doesn't, take long to fill out. And when you read that report, you can see it's very practical and it gives you an absolute sequential process on how to solve these problems in your business, because they are problems if you don't know that. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So this helps you to understand that, and then you can then make the necessary moves in your business in order to rectify where you're at so you can take your business forward. It's so positive, Julian. It's a great document, and I really implore people to check out the risk assessment button on the homepage. It's an orange button, easy to find. I really recommend that you do that.
No problems at all. Well, thank you for listening. Chris, always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Our goal is to get as much content to you so that you as Australian small business owners can make the best decisions, especially in these testing times. So please keep an eye out, like us on Facebook and LinkedIn for the daily content, and we will speak to you soon. Thank you.